Hello. Let me just check if the audio and video are proper. Just check if the audio. Okay, so I think it is working. Now we are live. So hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss this chapter 4 of the NCERT biology textbook class 11, which is called the animal kingdom. So in the past few lectures we have covered different aspects of the biological classification, starting from the living world, then the second chapter, which was directly the topic biological classification. In the third chapter, which is one of the important chapters, is the plant kingdom. That some of the concepts that we discuss in that chapter will be also useful for you later on when we are discussing plant physiology and also plant anatomy, all these topics. So that will be very useful for you to understand the evolution of different kingdoms and different domains within the plant kingdom. Now, today we are going to focus on the animal kingdom, and again, this is a huge chapter, so it's going to take some time. But if you patiently listen to me, you will definitely get one or two questions from this chapter, and also this will play a pivotal role in your further chapters like animal physiology and understanding of the different animals and how they work. There is slight noise coming out from outside, so please bear with me. And we are going to start this chapter from the introduction here. I'll just check if anyone else has any questions. So in the meantime, I will answer them when I'm transitioning from one topic to the other one. Okay, so now my marker is working. Yeah, so this is the Animal Kingdom, Chapter 4. We'll go slowly, line by line, and we'll cover everything, even if it will take a long time. But I want you to be thorough with this chapter because this is very important for you to understand the basic concepts of the animal kingdom so that you can apply them for the further chapters as well. So here we have, when you look around, you will observe different animals with different structures and forms, as over a million species of animals have been described till now. So similar to what we studied in the first chapter, where it was mentioned some millions of living organisms are present. Here they have given a number or a range for the animals. The need for classification becomes all the more important. The classification also helps in assigning a systematic position to the newly described species. So this is what we also discussed in our first class, that after identifying an organism, we need to classify them to properly understand their relationship with the already described animals or already described organisms. So that is why systematically placing it in different groups is also very important. And now we are going to focus on the organisms that are placed in the animal kingdom. For the animal kingdom, so initially I told you Aristotle classified the organisms as plant or animals, and these two kingdoms have been there for a long time because they are very distinctively and they have very distinct and very pronounced differences in their morphology or the external appearance. So that is why it is very easy to classify animals or plants, but the later kingdoms took some time to be classified, and also the classification within the animal kingdom became quite complex when we discovered lots of diversity in this kingdom, coming from the ocean, coming from the different areas of the earth, of the biosphere. So then it became more challenging to classify them. So we'll look how a systematic approach was taken to classify them properly. So the basis of classification is described here. In spite of differences in structure and form of different animals, there are fundamental features common to various individuals in relation to the arrangement of cells, body symmetry, nature of coelom, pattern of digestive, circulatory, or reproductive system. These are some of the characters which are fundamental to each and every organism which we are going to study in the animal kingdom. These features are used as the basis of animal classification, and some of them are discussed here. So coming to the level of organization, though all the members of Animalia are multicellular, all of them do not exhibit the same pattern of organization of cell. So here we can see that every member in the animal kingdom or plant kingdom are multicellular by definition. There are some unicellular members also, but mostly they are multicellular. And in the animal kingdom, like for example, in plant kingdom, there is Chlamydomonas, which is a member of algae, which can be unicellular, but most of them are multicellular. But the pattern of organizations are different. For example, in sponges, the cells are loosely arranged or arranged as the loose cell aggregates, that is, they exhibit cellular level of organization. So this is the first key point that you should keep in mind, that cellular level of organization is seen in sponges. So these are very old in terms of our evolutionary tree also. They were like the primitive animals. Some division of labor occur among the cells in coelentrates. This is the next phylum. The arrangement of cells is more complex, so we are slowly evolving. So coming from sponges to the coelentrates, there is some evolution in the arrangement of cells. Here the cells performing the same function are arranged into tissues. So next level is tissue. Jumping from the first phylum to the second phylum, we see this evolution in the arrangement of cells. And this is coelentrates. Then this is called tissue level of organization. A still higher level of organization, which is the organ level, is exhibited by the members of Platyhelminthes. So you see that there is a gradual increase in the complexity of organization. So next level is organ level. And this is in Platyhelminthes. Or flatworms as they are known commonly. And other higher phyla where tissues are grouped together to form organ. So this is also something that we study in our basic classes, that cells combine to form tissue which are having a common function, common origin, and then the tissues come together to form an organ. Organs come together to form an organ system, and organ systems come together to form an organism. So this is something that you should keep in mind, and that is what is being emphasized here as well. In animals like annelids, arthropods, mollusks, so going from platyhelminths to annelids and arthropods, like more developed organisms, will have an organ system kind of arrangement. Echinoderms and chordates, organs have associated to form functional systems. Each system is concerned with a specific physiological function, and this is called organ system level of organization. So here you can take the example of reproductive system, respiratory system, digestive system, all these circulatory system, all these systems are formed by multiple organs. So that we'll be studying later on when we are going to focus on the animal physiology. So each of these systems we will study separately there. Organ systems in different group of animals exhibit various patterns of complexities. For example, the digestive system in platyhelminths has only a single opening to the outside of the body that serves as both mouth and anus, and hence it is incomplete. This is again important point, incomplete digestive system. What does it mean? It simply means that there is only one opening which will serve as both the anus as well as the mouth. So ingesting and egesting the food, ingesting and egesting both will happen through opening, single opening. And this is called as incomplete digestive system. If someone asks you, give me an example of an organism having an incomplete digestive system, you can list any of the members from the Platyhelminths phylum. The complete digestive system has two openings, a mouth and anus. So the later organisms like chordates, like us, mammals, we have complete digestive system. This is a key point that should keep in mind. So in your NCERT, the example is given of platyhelminths, and you should remember this if a question comes. Like you are given four options, and the question says which of them has an incomplete digestive system. So you should be able to identify which of the organism given in the options belongs to platyhelminths, and then mark that. Similarly, the circulatory system may be of two types. Open type, in which the blood is pumped out of the heart and the cells, tissues are directly bathed in it. And closed type, in which the blood is circulated through a series of vessels of varying diameters like arteries, veins, and capillaries. So open type meaning the heart is pumping the blood into an open space, and the organs or whatever tissues are there, they're directly getting the oxygen or nutrients from that. But closed system means the blood is flowing through some veins, bloods, arteries, and then it is reaching the organ or the tissue. And then the tissues or the organs, whatever are located at the end of that or along that, are getting the oxygen, nutrients by diffusion through the closed system. It's very important to understand whether we have an open type circulatory system in the organism or a closed type or circulatory system in the organism. So we can also understand that open type system was a primitive system. So it would be seen in the earlier organisms like cockroaches, which belongs to arthropods. But if you come to closed type circulatory system, this will come in chordates. So this we are going to look later. Next is symmetry. Animals can be categorized on the basis of their symmetry. Symmetry meaning if you draw a line or a plane, can you divide the organism in two equal parts or multiple equal parts? Based on that, you can classify the organism as symmetrical or asymmetrical. So sponges are mostly asymmetrical, and you can understand why this is the case because they are loosely arranged cells, right? There is no fixed pattern of symmetry that is followed for arranging these loosely packed cells. Let's say this is a very simplistic example of a sponge. If this is a sponge, how will you divide it in half? There is no proper symmetrical pattern that is followed in arranging the cells because it is loosely arranged. Loosely arranged cells. And because it is loosely arranged, there is lack of symmetry. Hence, it will be termed as asymmetrical. That is, any plane that passes through the center does not divide them into equal halves. So very easy to remember example of asymmetrical organism. When any plane passes through the central axis and of the body divides the organism into two identical halves, it is called radial symmetry. So if any plane passes through this organism, for example here, you see this plane is passing. Let me erase this. Yeah. See, this plane is passing, this plane is passing, this plane is passing. So if you draw any such plane and all these planes are able to divide the organism in two equal halves, irrespective of where you are choosing the plane, at what angle, doesn't matter. Whichever plane you choose, the organism is going to be divided in two halves. That means it is radially symmetrical. Like if you take a circle, although this is not a proper circle, let me try it again. You take a circle and you draw it like draw a plane like this, you will get two equal halves. You draw a plane like this, you will again get these two equal halves. Similarly, if you draw it from anywhere, you will get two equal halves. So that is why it is a radial pattern, meaning coming from the radii or radius of a circle. So that is why you get the radial pattern of symmetry when any plane can divide the organism in two halves. So this is the radial symmetry. This can be seen in coelentrates, ctenophores, and echinoderms. So a classic example of this you can remember is a starfish. It has pentameric symmetry. Have this kind of body plan. And then coming to annelids like earthworms, arthropods like cockroaches. So you can remember one key example from each group so that it's easier for you to also understand their characteristics. Where the body can be divided into identical left and right half in only one plane. So So this is only one plane which is going to divide the organism in two equal halves. Then it is called a bilateral symmetry. Bilateral symmetry. Here a classic example can be seen of the image shows a crab, but you can also remember cockroach or humans. We can divide us in two equal halves. Although this is external division of equal halves, if you look at our internal organs, they are not going to be divided into two equal halves because on one side there will be heart which is tilted towards the left side. Then there is stomach on one side, there is liver on one side, there are pancreas on the other side. All these organs are not present in the equal proportion on both the sides, right? So that is why if you look at the internal symmetry, it's asymmetrical. But if you look at the external symmetry, we can divide higher organisms into bilateral symmetrical way. So that is something you should keep in mind. Although it is not mentioned here whether it is external symmetry or internal symmetry, but generally when we are talking about symmetry, it's the morphological or the external symmetry. Next is diploblastic and triploblastic organization. So animals in which the cells are arranged in two embryonic layers. So when the embryo is being formed in the developmental stages, if there are two embryonic layers, which is the external ectoderm, ecto meaning outside, and internal endoderm, derm meaning a skin kind of thing, like a layer, ecto meaning out, and endo meaning in. So it's very easy to remember, and you should remember this because this term will come multiple times, like endodermis in plants or endothelial cells in our blood vessel. So all these things you should remember some of these terms so that you can join it with the suffix and then form new meanings out of that. So ectoderm and internal endoderm are called diploblastic animals like coelentrates. So in coelentrates like in Hydra, you can see this kind of arrangement which is diploblastic. In sponges, you can't see because they don't have proper body organization. They are loosely arranged, like I told you here. So you can't see any endodermal or ectodermal layer or the embryonic layer arrangement in these sponges. An undifferentiated layer called mesoglia is present in between the ectoderm and endoderm. So this is important. This can be asked directly also. What is the name of the undifferentiated layer? Or they can ask you in assertion or reason whether the mesoglia is differentiated or undifferentiated. So this thing you should remember that mesoglia is present in between ectoderm and endoderm and it is undifferentiated, meaning it can give rise to either of these two layers. It can either get differentiated to form ectoderm or it can get converted to mesoderm. Endoderm, because mesoderm is not present here. This is undifferentiated mass of cells, also called as stem cells. And that is why, because of these stem cells, we see high regeneration capacity in Hydra or members of coelentrates. So Hydra, high regeneration capacity. You should remember this thing, although maybe they will not ask this directly, but maybe in some statement kind of questions they may ask why does Hydra has high regeneration capacity. So because it has this undifferentiated mass of cell which can give rise to its body, either the ectoderm or the endoderm, they have this high regeneration capacity. Those animals in which the developing embryo has a third germinal layer called mesoderm in between the ectoderm and endoderm are called triploblastic animals. So like platyhelminths to chordates, all of us are triploblastic. We have three germinal layers. Next is a very important concept again. So all these are like the basis of classification in the animal kingdom that you should remember, like symmetry, kind of body organization, coelom, symmetry, and diploblastic, triploblastic layer. All this will summarize later on, but you should remember the basis of classification, what is followed for classifying the different animals in the animal kingdom. This is not something that we considered for the plants. So plants had a different basis. whether they produce seed or not, whether they have vascular bundles or not. But here we have a more complex group of organisms, so we are having a much fine-grained parameter to classify them in a better way. So next is coelom. So presence or absence of a cavity. So cavity is basically in scientific term called coelom. Between the body wall and the gut wall is very important in classification. So here they are saying this presence or absence can become a very defining character when we are classifying animals. And this cavity is present between body wall. Remember this also. So this is between the body wall, like our external body wall, and then our internal gut. So if there is a cavity in between, that can accommodate some organs in between, right? So that is very important for classification. Body wall and gut wall, and there is this kind of cavity, you can say, like a tube within tube plan. So this cavity will be called a coelom. Here the image is also given. So there is this coelom, this empty cavity. This can be filled with fluid, organs, anything. So it is not that it will remain empty like that throughout the organism's developmental stage. But at one point in its life, this cavity will be formed, maybe early on in the development, and then it can have these patches of cells, which will be called pseudocoelom, or it can be like this, which is a coelom, because there is no cavity between the gut and the body wall. So this can be a coelomate, no cavity, so no coelom, no cavity between body and gut wall. This is very important to remember because we'll have an example of a coelomate also. So the body cavity which is lined by mesoderm is called coelom. So this body cavity which is lined by this reddish colored mesoderm, this is the mesoderm. And this is formed by splitting of the mesoderm, because this internal part is also mesoderm. So I'll just make an arrow here, and this outer part. So both red color split. I will write red in color. So this mesoderm is this red color cells which are lining the coelom, which is basically the empty cavity, and this cavity is formed by the splitting of the mesoderm. So this is an important process in the developmental stages of an organism. The body cavity which is lined by the mesoderm is called coelom. Animals possessing coelom are called coelomates. Very easy to remember, like annelids, mollusks. So every time you see the name of a phylum, you should also remember some of the examples. You should try to recall the examples from that phylum so that it's easy for you to recall the same thing quickly in your exam. Annelids, so think about earthworms, mollusks, you can think about snails, arthropods like cockroaches, echinoderm, you can remember starfish, hemichordates, you can remember melanoglossus. All these examples will come later, but I'm just telling you in advance. And chordates, you can remember all the different chordates, aves, amphibians, birds, all these things. In some animals, the body cavity is not lined by mesoderm. Instead, the mesoderm is present as scattered pouches in between the ectoderm and endoderm. So here the red colored mesoderm, this is the mesoderm. This is not forming a proper cavity. So this is just lying in the cavity as pouches. So then this is pseudocoelom. So I'll just highlight this. The mesoderm is present as scattered pouches. The term here used is scattered pouches between the ectoderm and the endoderm. So such a body cavity is called pseudocoelom, and the example here is Aschelminthus. So remember this, only example of pseudocoelomate is Aschelminthus. So I will write here also Aschelminthus. So that is why you should remember the example of pseudocoelomate. It's very important because there is only one example, like one phylum of pseudocoelomate, which is given here. And the animals in which the body cavity is absent altogether, there is no body cavity, like the example shown here. They're called acoelomate, again platyhelminthes. So just one level below that. So here it's flatworms, platyhelminthes or platyhelminthes. And this is after one level progression, you go to pseudocoelom stage, and after that you go to annelids, and from there on you start seeing the transition to true coelom or coelomate stage. I'll just draw this also. So platyhelminthes, platyhelminthes, then nemathelminthes or aschelminthes, both are used. I will use the term which is written here not to confuse you. Next will come annelids. So this is kind of the progression that we see in evolutionary terms. So this doesn't have coelom, so this is acoelomate. I will write here pseudocoelomate. If you understand this chronology, it will be easier for you to remember it for a long term. So this is coelomate, and going on, after you have found coelom, which is going to be useful for you in evolutionary terms, you will keep it for all the future organisms or all the future generations of not generations, but all the future branches which will be evolving from this organism. Next is segmentation, very small part, but again question can be asked on this metamerism concept. So in some animals, the body is externally and internally, very important. It should be segmented both from outside and inside, divided into segments with a serial repetition at least of at least some organs. For example, in earthworm, the body shows this pattern called metameric segmentation, and the phenomenon is called metamerism. So, if you study the structure of earthworms, which belongs to annelids, so you will see this kind of segments. This kind of segments will be seen, which is repeated serially, both internally and externally. Remember this: external plus internal segments. And this in scientific terms is called metamerism, seen in earthworms, which is a member of annelida. So it's seen in earthworms. Next, again a small point, notochord. Notochord is a mesodermally derived rod-like structure. So the question can be asked, what is the origin of notochord? So origin is mesodermal. So the mesoderm that you saw here is giving rise to the notochord as well. Will form your vertebral column in the chordates, formed on the dorsal side during the embryonic development in some animals. So the more advanced animals have this structure, the less advanced don't have this evolved structure yet. So animals with notochord are called chordates. This is like a defining feature, defining features. So organisms that have this notochord are called chordates, and those animals which do not possess this are called non-chordates. Like Porifera to echinoderms, everyone, all these phylums don't have. But after this, next comes the chordate phylum, which has all the organisms which have this notochord present, at least in some stage of their life. So there can be hemichordates also, which don't have it for their entire life. They have initially. So yeah, but if there is a presence of notochord at any stage, then it will be called a chordate or notochord bearing organism. And absence of that will be grouped as non-chordate. So before moving on to the next point, I'll just check if you guys have any question. So Raghav has a question here. He is asking for life science, microbiology, and biochemistry. Okay, Raghav, after I complete this chapter today, I will try to schedule a session for GATE Excel tomorrow, most likely. Okay, so let's move to the next section, which is now coming to the classification of animals. So until now, we studied all the different parameters that we'll be using for classifying animals. And from now on, we'll be studying how the animals are classified using these parameters. So just to give you a brief summary again, we studied notochord, segmentation, which is also referred to as metamerism, then presence or absence of coelom, three different types of coelom, coelomate, acoelomate, pseudocoelomate. Example of acoelomate, platyhelminthes, example of pseudocoelomate, aschelminthes, and example of coelomates, everything from Annelida to the last group that we know. Then diploblastic and triploblastic organization, we studied this. We studied symmetry, three different kinds of symmetry, asymmetrical, bilateral symmetry, and then radial symmetry. And different level of body organization like cellular level, tissue level, organ system level. So that was it from this section. Now let's move to the next section. So here is the tree, kind of you can say flow chart given for the classification of animal kingdom. So all the members of multicellular cellular level organization is mostly seen in the porifera, only seen in porifera, and they're mostly asymmetrical, acoelomate, because they don't have any symmetry and tissue level of organization. They are bound to have absence of coelom, so that's why they are acoelomate. Next, coming to the tissue organ or organ system level of organization, here they can be radially symmetrical, which is again acoelomate, because again there is diploblastic nature seen here. So this can be coelentrates or cnidarians or ctenophora. This also has radial symmetry. These are like the initial organisms, primitive organisms. Then comes bilateral symmetry. One more thing, coelentrates. I gave you example of Hydra, which has mesoglia present, which is undifferentiated mass of cell, so which also gives it the power to degenerate quickly. Bilateral symmetry, if you look at this, there are three different kinds of body cavity present. It can be either acoelomate, so example is platyhelminthes, can be false coelom like pseudocoelomate, so aschelminthes. The term which is used here is pouch or scattered pouch of mesoderm. Scattered pouch of mesoderm. You should remember this term, which is between the ectoderm and the endoderm. So this is seen in aschelminthes, like Ascaris. You can remember the example here, which is seen in the aschelminthes. Next is true coelom. So annelid, arthropoda, mollusca, echinodermata, hemichordata, and chordata. All these phylums have true coelom. They are bilaterally symmetrical, except there is echinodermata which exhibit radial or bilateral symmetry depending on the stage. So there is this exception given. Just keep in mind that the adult is radially symmetrical. The starfish that you see, it is radially symmetrical. We can also go in depths of what are the different kind of larvae seen in all these organisms, but that is not required at NEET level or the class 12th level. So we'll not go into that much depth, but you can also remember there are different kinds of larvae which is used for classification, like planula or like Circaria larva. Here we have Bipinnaria, Tornaria larva of different groups. So you can go on studying the larva and all the other different kinds of characters of the larva as well for classifying. But at the class 12 level or NEET level, it is not required that much. So now let's look at some of the phyla one by one. And here the images are also going to be very useful for you to see how these characteristics are actually translated in classifying the organisms of this phylum. So members of this phylum are commonly known as sponges. I will just go on highlighting wherever I feel it is important. They are generally marine, like in the salty water in the ocean, and mostly asymmetrical animals. So this we also saw in the above flow chart. These are primitive multicellular animals. Again, as I'm repeating multiple times, these are very primitive, old, they have very old origin and have cellular level of organization. Sponges have a water transport or canal system. This is important. This can be asked which of these phyla has a water transport or canal system. So the sponges have a water transport or canal system. Water enters through minute pores which are called ostia. So these minute pores on the body of sponge is called ostia in the body wall into a central cavity, spongocoel. So although it is not a true coelom, it's not a true cavity formed by splitting of endoderm or ectoderm, but it's still called a spongocoel, a coelom or a cavity present in the sponge or the poriferar members, from where it goes out through the osculum. So enter through ostia. I will just write it here. It will enter through ostia and it will exit from osculum. These minute pores on the body of poriferans is called as ostia, and this entire inner cavity is called spongocoel. Spongocoel meaning a cavity which is present in the body of sponges. So enters through ostia, which are minute pores, exit through osculum. This pathway of water transport is helpful in food gathering. So whatever comes with the water, they will just collect everything, process it, and then remove all the waste from their body or spongocoel. Respiratory exchange and removal of waste. It's very easy to understand. Then again, important thing, choanocytes. So choanocytes or collar cells line the spongocoel and the canals. So inside you see there are some cells which are called choanocytes, and there is some role of these choanocytes which is not described here. So let me complete this and then I will describe what is the role of choanocytes. So digestion is intracellular. Body is supported by a skeleton made of spicules or spongin fibers. Their body is composed of or supported by spicules, or these are like fibers made of spongin. Because it is present in sponge, the fiber is also named spongin. And one more thing, sexes are not separate. So here they have both male and female gametes being produced on the same body of the sponge. Eggs and sperm are produced by the same individual. Sponges reproduce asexually by fragmentation. So this is like an extension of plant kingdom. There also same thing was happening, that for asexual reproduction they used to do fragmentation. Fertilization and sexually by the formation of gametes. So whenever there is formation of gamete, it will lead to sexual reproduction. That is by definition. Fertilization is internal and development is indirect, having a larval stage which is morphologically distinct from the adult. So here they have described the larva briefly. So let me show you the larva also and also describe this choanocyte. And one more thing, the fertilization is internal. So both the gametes will come inside and then they will fuse with each other and then form the zygote and the body of the next generation or the progeny. Development is indirect because it goes through a larval stage. So the zygote will not directly form the adult. It will have an intermediate stage which is the larva. And let me show you the larva and the choanocytes now. Here are some of the examples that you should remember. First is Cycon, Spongilla, and Euspongia. So it's very easy to remember because they belong to sponges. Their name has this sponge thing. So Euspongia, like true sponge. Spongilla, very easy to remember, like Godzilla. And Cycon is again a sponge. So you can remember these examples very easily. Also, you should remember which diagram is for which organism. Maybe they can ask you like a master following, although they don't ask too much image based question, but maybe if they ask, you should just remember that this is Cycon, this round globular structure is Euspongia, and this slightly elongated projections coming out from this structure is called, this organism is called Spongilla. So yeah, choanocytes are the collar cells. They play a crucial role in sponges by generating water currents that facilitate the intake of nutrients and removal of waste. So they have like flagella, which is beating to bring in the water and to remove out the waste thing. Specialized cell that line the interior of sponges. They have a unique structure featuring a flagellum surrounded by a collar of microvilli. The beating of the flagella creates the water current that draws water into the sponge through the ostia, and then beating out will push the water out from the osculum. As the water flows through the sponge, choanocytes filter out the microscopic food particles. The choanocytes also trap these particles and ingested by the choanocytes through a process called phagocytosis. So this is something I'll explain in cell biology later on. Then, yeah, so exits the sponge through this larger opening called osculum, facilitates nutrient uptake and removal of waste product. Also, choanocytes can transform into gametes, specifically spermatocytes, during the sponge's sexual reproduction. This is not very important at your level, but just to tell you something about the function of choanocytes. And then I will also show you the sponge's larva. Yeah, so there are two main types of larvae in sponges. First one is parenchyma and next is planula. So you should remember that there are these two types of larvae which is seen in sponges, parenchyma and planula. I will show you a table of larval stages in different organisms, in different phylum. In the meantime, let me check if there are some questions in the chat section. So here in porifera sponges we have Coeloblastula. Parenchyma is the key example that you should remember. Cnidarians or coelentrates we have planula. In Annelida we have trochophore larva. In insects, different orders can have different larvae. Like in insecta there is caterpillar for Lepidoptera, grub for Coleoptera, maggot for Diptera, wriggler for mosquitoes, crustacean have Nauplus larva, zoea and mysis. Mollusca again has trochophore larva which is similar to annelids. Echinoderms have Bipinnaria and Pluteus larva. Hemichordates have Tornaria larva. Urochordate has tadpoles similar to amphibians. Fishes have ichthyoplankton, ammosaete for lamprey and leptocephalus for eels. So these are some of the larvae. Actually, I can share it with you in my Telegram group also, so that it's easy for you to remember which phylum has which larval forms. So I'll share it with you later, and let's get back to the other phylum of animal kingdom. So here are the examples: Cycon, Scypha, Spongilla, freshwater sponge, and Euspongia, which is the bath sponge. So maybe it's used for bathing. That's why it's called Euspongia. I'm not sure about that, but yeah. Coelenterate, again called as Cnidarians. They are aquatic, mostly marine, like present in the salty water, sessile or free swimming. So sessile form is this, and free swimming is the jellyfish, which we commonly know. Hydra and jellyfish, all these are members of coelenterates. Radially symmetrical. From the flowchart, you must remember this. that they are radially symmetrical, Cnidarians as well as Ctenophorans, which will come after this. Cnidaria is derived from the cnidoblast or cnidocytes, which contain the stinging capsule or nematocyst. So the cells are called cnidoblast. Cnidoblast. And the capsule in that is called nematocyst. So the structure inside that is called nematocyst, but the cells are called cnidoblast or cnidocytes. Cnidocytes, that is why the members of this group are called cnidarians. Present on the tentacles and the body. So for stinging, it has this structure called nematocyst. Cnidoblasts are used for anchorage, defense, capture of prey. So it will sting the prey and then it will paralyze it with some toxin which is present in that, and then it will capture it and feed on that. Cnidarians exhibit tissue level of organization and are diploblastic. So this all we already discussed in detail, not discovered. They have a central gastrovascular cavity with a single opening mouth on hypostome. So this structure on top, which we see here, is called hypostome. Here also you can see this is the hypostome, and this is the single cavity for entrance and exit of food and exit of the waste material. So digestion is extracellular. So digestion happens outside because the enzymes are released in the extracellular space, and then it is digested there, and then the digested food material is taken up by the cells. And intracellular. So at some level, it will be digested outside, and then the remaining digestion will be completed inside the cell as well. So like the process of glycolysis, Krebs cycle, all these things will happen inside the cell. Some of the cnidarians, example corals. This is again a very important thing. Skeleton composed of calcium carbonate. So the corals that we see on beaches, corals have calcium carbonate. This is very important to remember. When it reacts with acid, because it is basic in nature, it can react with acid and then it can be leached from there or bleached. So that's why the corals are being bleached around the globe because of more and more acidic content in the water, which is being released by the industries. Cnidarians exhibit two basic body forms called polyp and medusa. The former is a sessile, meaning which is not moving, cylindrical form like Hydra, Adamsia, whereas the later is umbrella shaped and free swimming like Aurelia or jellyfish. So, jellyfish is the common name, but Aurelia is the scientific name of the organism that we see with stinging tentacles and glowing sometimes. So, that property is called bioluminescence, just for your information. Those cnidarians which exist in both form exhibit uh, alternation of generation. Where did it go? Yeah. Okay. The cnidarians which exist in both the forms exhibit alternation of generation, and this process is called metagenesis. Don't confuse it with metamerism, which is segmentation, internal and external. And metagenesis, meaning alternation of generation, meaning it can take the polyform or the medusa form. Polyform meaning it is sessile, stays in one place like Hydra, or the next stage is the free floating one, which is the jellyfish kind of thing, free swimming and umbrella shaped kind of thing. So polyps produce medusae asexually. So polyp to medusa is asexual reproduction, and medusa form the polyps sexually. So from medusa they will form the gametes, and then they will fuse and form the polyps, which is a sexual reproduction. So this is seen in obelia. So remember this example. This is very important. Uh, the examiners can ask you which organism shows alteration of generation, or just to confuse you, they can throw this jargon metagenesis, and you should be able to answer that it is seen in Obelia, which is a member of Cnidarians or Coelentrates. Example here is very simple: Phycelia, which is Portuguese man of war. Just remember it because this is a common name. You can't do anything. Adamsia is the sea anemone. Pennatula, which is the sea pen. Gorgonia is the sea fan, and Meandrina, which is the brain coral. So different kind of corals, hydra, jellyfish, all these belong to coelentrates or cnidarians. Very easy to remember. And this is the structure of medoblast. This is, I think, the mitochondria. This is the stinging structure. And these are the different forms. So this is the Aurelia form, which is the Medusa, and this is the Adamsia or the polyform. So this can be, I think this is sea anemone, and this is Aurelia or the jellyfish. Next is Spinophora, very short and sweet phylum here given very shortly. Although these are very detailed and well described in actual scientific literature, but for your purposes, you just have to study this much and revise them as good and as well you can, so that you are able to solve good marks in your exam at your level. So next is Spinophore, which is known as sea walnut or comb jellies, exclusively marine. They are almost always found in salty water, radially symmetrical. You can see why it is radially symmetrical. You can divide it. Diploblastic organisms with tissue level of organization. The body bears 8 external rows of ciliated comb plates. This is again important characteristics of this phylum. So 8 external rows of ciliated comb plates. You can see here 1, 2. This one is the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. There are these 8 comb plates which is seen on the external body of this organism, which help in locomotion. So this helps in the movement, and digestion is extracellular and intracellular, so it will happen both. Some part of it will happen outside the cell, then after coming the whatever glucose or whatever metabolite is there, after the initial digestion it will come inside the cell and it will be further converted to energy, ATP currency. Then this is key point here. Bioluminescence is the property of living organisms to emit light, is well marked in ctenophores. So it is very commonly seen in ctenophores. It is not like it is only seen in ctenophores. It can be also seen in jellyfish, like I told you just before this, the coelentrates. But it is more commonly seen in ctenophores in most of the members. That is what is being said here. Sexes are not separate, again hermaphrodite. Reproduction takes place only by sexual reproduction. And fertilization is external with indirect development. So through a larva. So the larvas I'll share with you in the group. Example is Pleurobrachia, Tinoplana. So Tinophora, Tinoplana. Very easy to remember this also. And here the structure is shown of Pleurobrachia, which is one of the other example which is spoken of here. Next phylum is Platyhelminthes, dorso-ventrally flattened body. Like the front and back is flattened, dorso-ventrally flattened body, not anterior-posterior. Anterior-posterior meaning their head and tail side. That is not flattened. The back and the stomach belly side is flattened. Hence are called flatworms. These are mostly endoparasites, meaning live inside the host. Found in animals including human beings. So many times you hear that someone got worms in their stomach. So they are usually the members of Platyhelminthes or Nemathelminthes, which is coming after this. Flatworms are bilaterally symmetrical. You can see why they are bilaterally symmetrical. You can draw a line through this central axis and they can be divided into two equal halves. So this is why they are bilateral bilaterally symmetrical. Yeah. Diploblastic, they have 3 germinal layers. So important to note here, there are 3 germinal layers, but is that coelom present or not? No. So there is no presence of coelom. That is why they are acoelomate. Animals with organ level of organization. So until here they are having just organ level. Later on when we see coelom, then there will be organ system level of development. Hooks and suckers are present in the parasitic form. Again, this is very important. They have hooks to cling to the host tissue so that they don't get out from the host body just by some fluid flow. So, for example, they can get stuck to your stomach And even if you're drinking lots of water, they will not come out because they have this hook and sucker like structure, which is helping them to stick properly or rigidly to the host. Some of them absorb nutrient from the host directly through their body surface. Specialized cells called flame cells, again important, similar to choanocytes there. Here the flame cells are helping in osmoregulation and excretion. Sexes are not separate hermaphrodites. So initial ones are having like have to produce both the male and female gamete. Later on we see the separation. Fertilization is internal. So here the fertilization is internal and development is through many larval stages. So these larvae are not mentioned here, but I will share it with you again. Some members like Planaria possess high regeneration capacity. So this you should remember. Planaria has high regeneration capacity. Planaria regeneration, Hydra regeneration, all these things you should remember. So because these are very primitive organism, although this is more developed than Hydra, but still they have some undifferentiated cells, stem cells, which can help them to form or renew their body even after there is some damage or something, some mishap. So Taenia solium, which is tapeworm, and Fasciola, which is liver fluke. All these, or like both of them, are the members of platyhelminthes. There are more examples, but at your level, you should remember at least these two. Next is Ascalminthus. So here the example given is of roundworm, Agaricus. Sorry, not Agaricus. Agaricus is mushroom Ascaris. So here the Ascalminthus are circular in cross section, hence the name roundworms. Earlier one is flatworm, dorsoventrally flattened. This one is roundworm, so that's why they are commonly known as roundworm. They may be free living, aquatic, terrestrial, parasitic, whatever, like they can be present everywhere, you can say. Organ system level of body. So from now on, earlier you see platyhelminthes were having only organ level, but from now on you see the organ system level of development. Where is that? Yeah, here. So they were having organ level of organization, but from the Escalmentis, you start seeing the organ system level of organization. So this is important to note that now we are evolving one step ahead. We are going to the organ system level. So multiple organs can coordinate with each other to play a key role or a key function in the body. They are bilaterally symmetrical, again easy to see, bilateral symmetry. Triploblastic pseudocoelomates. So this is again important. Example of pseudocoelomate, Ascalminthus. Example of acoelomate, platyhelminthes. Example of coelomate, everything after that. Alimentary canal is complete with a well-developed muscular pharynx. So this is complete, meaning they have a mouth and anus, both are present. Excretory tube removes body waste from the body cavity through the excretory pore. Sexes are separate, so now we start saying dioecious, which is male and females are separate and also distinct. So here you can see the male is shorter, the female is longer. And there are some presence of these sexual structures also which help in the transfer of gamete. Often females are longer than male. Fertilization is internal, development may be indirect. The young one resembles the adult, or direct or indirect. So through larval stages, or maybe there are some examples within the Escalminthus which can directly go from zygote to the adult stage without any intermediate larval stages. Examples here are Ascaris, Wuchereria, which is again for elephantiasis. You might have heard Filariasis or elephantiasis as it is known. So this is the filaria worm, or Angiosperma, which is the hookworm. Next is annelid. Classic example is earthworm here. So leeches are also example of this. So Nereis, Hirudinaria. Hirudinaria is basically the leech that we know commonly. This is the leech with lots of segment. You can see, just to remind all of you, segments known as metamers, and phenomenon is called metamerism. Metamerism, internal and external segmentation. I should write. So metamers are the segments, and this phenomenon is called metamerism or segmentation in plain English. They may be aquatic or terrestrial, free living, sometimes parasitic. So most of them are like parasitic, or they can be most of them are like heterotrophic, so they are going to be either parasitic or dependent on the dead decaying matter or something like that. Exhibit organ system. So going from Ascalmenthes, everything else would be more developed. So they are like organ system. They are having organ system level of organization, bilateral symmetry, triploblastic, metamerically segmented. All these things I have already described. Coelomate. This is important. So from a coelomate, platyhelminths, we came to pseudocoelomate, ascalminths, to now the true coelom containing annelids, or true empty cavity containing empty cavity. I mean, cavity is empty. It's not empty. It's later filled with other organs, but there is this true cavity found by the splitting of mesoderm. The body surface is distinctly marked out into segments or metameres, exactly what I wrote here even before reading. Hence the phylum name Annelida, and they possess long annulus meaning ring. Just short reminder, but all they will not ask this directly why it is called Annelida. They possess longitudinal and circular muscles. This is important. So what kind of muscles are seen? So longitudinal and circular muscles help in locomotion. Aquatic annelids are like example Nereis possess lateral appendages which is called parapodia. So here you can see these lateral appendages, parapodia. Para meaning on the sides and podia meaning feet. Parapodia, lateral appendages. Lateral feet you can say, or appendages. Whatever is easy for you to remember. This is seen in the aquatic annelids like Nereis, which help in swimming, a closed circulatory system again. This is present nephridia, which is helping in osmoregulation, excretion. So this you will see in the later chapters on excretory system as well. Neural system is also present, paired ganglion or ganglia, connected by lateral nerves to the double ventral nerve cord. So here the nerve cord is on the ventral side, meaning on the belly side, not on the back side, on the belly side. So this has a double ventral nerve cord. Later on, you will see as we evolve more and more, we will see single dorsal nerve cord. Nereis is an aquatic form and it's dioecious, meaning it has both male and female separately. Earthworms and leeches are monoecious. They are hermaphrodites, so they can generate both the male and female gamete. Reproduction is sexual. Nereis ferretima is the scientific name of earthworm, and Hirudinaria, which is the blood-sucking leech. Easy to remember. Some important points you should know: presence of metameres, presence of longitudinal circular muscles. In Nereis, there is presence of parapodia. They have this closed circulatory system, excretory system, and nervous system. All these things are present. So they are towards more developed side as compared to the organisms that we saw until now. But as we build on this, we see that we are going to see much more development happening. So next, coming to Arthropoda, one of the largest phylum of Animalia. So this is the largest actually. This is the textbook. This is the largest phylum, including insects. Over two-thirds of all animal species on Earth are arthropods. This is a very key important statement you should know. Two-thirds of the species on Earth are arthropods. All the described species, if you count and see what is the proportion of arthropods, it's roughly two-thirds of them. They have organ system, so this was expected. From now on, everyone will have organ system. Bilateral symmetry, okay. Triploblastic, segmented, coelomate animals. So triploblastic nature will also be there for all of them. Coelomate nature will be also there. Segmented is something unique to them, similar to annelids, but it's not that all the developments will also have segments or not. The body of arthropod is covered by chitinous exoskeleton. So this I described in one of the previous lectures when I was talking about plant kingdom. So the presence of chitin in fungi, not plant kingdom, in biological classification, I talked about this. The body consists of head, thorax, and abdomen. This you should remember. So in arthropods, the body is composed of these three segments: head, thorax, and abdomen, which is repeated both internally and externally. So this is one of the key defining characters. They have jointed appendages, arthro meaning joint and poda meaning appendages, similar to what I told you just a few minutes ago, parapodia. Respiratory organs are like gills, book lungs, tracheal system. So more diversity. That is why they are one of the largest phylum currently on Earth of the animal kingdom. Circulatory system is open type. Sensory organs are like antenna. Eyes can be compound or simple. So in cockroaches, you see compound eyes called omatidia, and they come together to form a hexagon-like structure. Statocyst or balancing organs are also present. So these are some of the sensory organs. Antenna. This is very easy to also remember because most of you would have seen cockroaches. So they have antenna, they have eyes, they have statocyst. This is not something most of you would have seen. And balancing organ. Excretion takes place through Malpighian tubules. So after the scientist Malpighi, this was named as Malpighian tubules. They are mostly dioecious, so male and female are separate. Fertilization is internal, mostly oviparous, meaning they give eggs. Oviparous meaning eggs, not directly to the young one. They don't give rise to the young one directly. Development may be direct or indirect, so they can give rise to the adult directly from the zygote, or they can give rise to a larval form and then it can slowly develop into the adult stage. So, like butterflies, you must have studied, it goes through this molting and multiple stages of metamorphism. So, economically important insects are apis, which is honeybee. Just remember the uh, generic name, like the genus name of all these commonly known organism insects. Most of this you would have heard, but just remember the generic name also. Generic meaning that genus name, not common. Bombyx is silkworm, laccifer is lac insect. So very easy to remember. Apis you would have heard many times for honeybee. Bombyx is silkworm, you just have to know this. Laccifer, the name is there in the genus name itself. Laccifer is lac insect. Vector very easy. Anopheles, Culex, Aedes. This is most of us have heard this multiple times. Gregarious pest means they come in a group. So locust or locust. So you might have heard this in news also that locust infestation is happening in lots of farms in India and stuff. Living fossil, Limulus, king crab. So this you should remember. All these common names you should remember of this, especially this example and this example. You should remember all these common names as well as the scientific names. Next, moving ahead, phylum Mollusca. So this is the second largest. Coming from Arthropoda to Mollusca, you have the second largest phylum. Mollusca terrestrial or aquatic, so they can be present on land like we have snails, or aquatic like we have octopus and all the other different types of marine organisms like there are many more organisms which we'll be describing later on. So there are like these conches also which are present in the marine water, so they can be both. Having an organ system, so this is again expected everyone after this, like from the annelids, thereafter everyone has organ system. They are bilaterally symmetrical, triploblastic, coelomate, body is covered by calcareous shell and is unsegmented with a distinct head, muscular foot, and visceral hump. So here you see there is some repetition of head, muscular foot, and visceral hump, but there is no proper segment kind of thing which can be seen externally. So if the external and internal segments were present, then we would have said that this phylum also has segmentation or metamerism, but this doesn't have, unlike the previous groups like annelids or arthropods. So that is why it has an unsegmented body. This is important to remember. And it has a calcareous shell made of calcium salts like calcium carbonate. A soft and spongy layer of skin forms a mantle over the visceral hump. So the visceral hump has this. Uh, so maybe there is a structure given here. It's not shown here, but the visceral hump you can see maybe like this, and it has a soft structure inside this. So soft and spongy layer of skin forms the mantle over the visceral hump. Okay, so over the visceral hump there is this soft layer of skin which is present called the mantle. This is properly seen in the snail, but here the snail diagram is not shown. Space between the hump and the mantle is called the mantle cavity, in which feather-like gills are present. So for breathing, these feather-like gills are present. They have respiratory and excretory functions, so they can do both. The feather gills in the mollusk. So this is important to remember. Feather-like gills. They have respiratory and excretory role in mollusca. Then the anterior head region has sensory tentacles. The mouth can contains a file-like rasping organ called radula. So this is again important. In which organism radula is present? You should know that it is in mollusca, the group called phylum called mollusca, and it is the file-like rasping organ. Usually dioecious, again male female separate. Oviparous give rise to first egg, and from that the offspring will hatch. Indirect development meaning they have larval stages. So Pila is apple snail, Pinnactada is pearl oyster. So the oyster that we see which give rise to pearls. So that is also a member of mollusca. Sepia is cuttlefish. Although it is a member of mollusca, it is wrongly named as fish. So don't get confused. Just remember it. Sepia is cuttlefish. Loligo is squid. Octopus is common name is devilfish. Aplysia is sea hare. Dentalium is tusk shell. And Chitoplura is chiton. So these names are a bit difficult to remember in the first go, but if you read it 3 or 4 times, it will be easy. So that is how you can remember it for long term. And because the examples are not that much in the NCERT, so you should remember most of them. And I would say remember all of them. Maybe in some options they can twist and turn the options and give you them, serve it to you. So you should be able to identify at least the organisms that are in the textbook. So Pila, apple snail, Pinnactada, pearl oyster, sepia, cuttlefish. Read like this quickly, and then after 2 3 times you will be able to recall most of them. Oligo, squid, octopus, devilfish, applies a sea hare, dentalium, tusk shell, Chitoplura, chiton. So that's it for the mollusca. Next is echinodermata. So these animals have an endoskeleton. So here the endoskeleton is there of calcareous ossicles, and hence the name echinodermata, which is spiny bodied. In the arthropods, you had an exoskeleton made of chitin. Here it is the endoskeleton, which is made up of calcareous ossicles like bones of calcium salt, mostly calcium carbonate, calcium phosphate, all these kind of things. All are marine, all are found in salty water with organ system level organization. Adult echinoderm are radially symmetrical. This is what I wrote earlier also. But larvae are bilateral symmetrical. So the bipinnaria larva, I'll just mention here, larva here is bipinnaria larva. This is bilateral symmetry. This is having a bilateral symmetry. Triploblastic coelomate, this is a common theme which is repeated for all the groups after the ones that I told you earlier. Digestive system is complete, with complete meaning they have mouth and anus both on the lower ventral side and the anus on the upper dorsal side. Most distinctive features, so this is important. Water vascular system is present in echinoderms, which helps in locomotion, capture and transport of food and respiration. Similar to the choanocytes, similar to the flame cells that we studied earlier, here they have this water vascular system lined by multiple cells because now they have organ system, not like single cells which are playing the role in all these processes, but they have a complete system which is called the water vascular system, which helps them to do all these multiple functions. Then excretory system is absent, so this is important. Yeah, so the excretory system is absent. So how do they remove the waste? Through this water vascular system itself, everything will be removed, and the sexes are separate. Reproduction is sexual, fertilization is external. So both the gametes will go out, fuse, and then form a new organism outside without being present on the parent's body. Development is indirect through the larval stages, free swimming larva. So the name also I gave you here, bipinnate larva. Asterias, which is starfish. In the name also you can see asterias like a star. You can remember. Echinus is sea urchin. Antidon is sea lily. Cucumeria is sea cucumber. Cucumeria is again from the name you can remember cucumber. Cucumeria, and Ophiora is brittle star. This all these examples you should know. So this is the brittle star, which is again you can see there is this radial symmetry here, and this is your starfish asterias, which is again having a radial symmetry. Coming to the next phylum, which is here Hemichordata. Hemi meaning semi, like half. Earlier considered as subphylum under Chordata, but now it is placed as a separate phylum under non-chordata because hemichordata have a rudimentary structure in the collar region called stomochord, a structure which is similar to notochord. So earlier the scientists thought that maybe this is a notochord, so that is why they placed it under the chordates. But later on, it was studied and identified that this is not actually a true notochord. This is a rudimentary structure which is resembling the notochord, and it was called as stomochord. And this stomochord is present in the collar region. Stomochord present in this region, in the collar region. Phylum consists of small group of worm-like, so most of them are like worm-like organism, organ system level. All these are developed. Bilateral symmetry, triploblastic, coelomate, cylindrical body. We can see here cylindrical composed of proboscis, collar, and trunk. So this is important. What are the three features? Proboscis is the mouth area, then the stomochord containing collar region, and the trunk is the remaining tail-like structure. Circulatory system is of open type, so there are no proper veins, arteries, and stuff. Respiration takes place through gills. Excretory system is proboscis gland, so excretory organs. So this is from where it will remove all the waste matter. Sexes are separate, fertilization external, development is indirect through the larval stages. So example is glossus. You can remember balanoglossus, saccoglossus. Both glossus are the members of hemichordates. Now next is chordates. Animals belonging to phylum chordate are fundamentally characterized by the presence of a notochord. As I told you, presence of notochord is one of the defining features of chordates, and a dorsal meaning on the back side, not on the belly side. So on the dorsal side, hollow, it should be hollow and nerve cord, single nerve cord usually, and paired pharyngeal gill slits. So a pair of pharyngeal gill slits. In the pharynx, there is a presence of gill slits. These are bilaterally symmetrical, triploblastic, coelomate, organ system level. All these features are already developed, so they will remain with us. They possess a post-anal tail, closed circulatory system. So this is how an ideal chordate will look like. It has a post-anal tail after the anus. This is the anus. There is this tail-like structure, and there is this notochord. This structure is the notochord, which you can see here. This is the nerve cord, which is on the dorsal side, as you can see here. This is the belly side, which is also called as the ventral side. This is the dorsal side, which has a hollow nerve cord. Hollow nerve cord is present on the dorsal side, and then there are these gill slits present in the pharynx region. This is in the pharynx. That is why it is called pharyngeal gill slits. So this can be asked maybe in your board exams, but not so much directly. But still, you should know this because notochord is present chordates, absent in non-chordates. Central nervous system is dorsal, hollow, and single. So as I was saying, it is dorsal hollow and single. Here it is ventral solid and double. Opposite, dorsal ventral, hollow solid, single double. Although single double are not opposite, but you can just remember it like this. Pharynx perforated by gill slits. Gill slits are absent. Heart is ventral, so heart is on our ventral side. Their heart is dorsal mostly. If it is present in cockroaches, if you see, the heart is present on the dorsal side, back side. In us, the heart is present on the ventral side. Post-anal part is present. Here, the post-anal part is absent. Tail is absent. So then, chordates can be further divided into three subphylums. So within this big phylum, we have three subphylum, which is Urochordates or Tunicata, or Cephalochordata and Vertebrata. Urochordata, Cephalochordata, and Vertebrata, like us, vertebrate containing organisms. Subphylum Urochordata and Cephalochordata are also called as Protochordata. So chordates, protochordates, and then vertebrates. Protochordates, further to classification, Urochordata, Cephalochordata. So let me just write it for you. Chordata, you can write protochordata and then vertebrata. If I were to draw a phylogenetic tree, I will draw it in a different way, but this is just for you to understand the flow. So this is Urochordata and this is Cephalo. Cephalo meaning like brain region, the cephalic region, and are exclusively marine. So they are exclusively present in the salty water. Urochordates, in Urochordates, notochord is present only in the larval tail. So wherever it is present only in the larval tail region, meaning the lower part of the body, the posterior part of the body, then they are classified as urochordate. While in cephalochordate, it extends from head to tail and is present throughout their life. So this is important. So in urochordates, present in tail and only in larval stages. Cephalochordates, head to tail, is present throughout the body and throughout life. Throughout life. So urochordates, you can see, are more primitive as compared to cephalochordates because they have the presence of this notochord only in the larval tail. Example of urochordates, very easy to remember. Just three examples are there: Ascidia, Salpa, and Doliolum. And cephalochordate example is just one, Branchiostoma, which is called Amphioxus or lancelet. So the scientific name is Branchiostoma, but common names are Amphioxus or lancelet. Then coming to the members of subphylum Vertebrata. So here we talked about this two very briefly, like within one paragraph, we talked about both the subphylum. If you actually go and study, it's much more diverse. Members of subphylum Vertebrata possess notochord during the embryonic period. So they have this notochord. The notochord is replaced by the cartilaginous or bony vertebral column. So like in our case, we have the vertebrae, which are the bones. But in some of the chordates or the vertebrates, it can be also replaced by cartilage in the adult. Thus, all the vertebrates are chordates, but all chordates are not vertebrates. So, this is a statement which is asked time and again. All the vertebrates, vertebrate is a subset of the chordates. So, all the vertebrates are chordates because they belong to this bigger class, but all the chordates are not vertebrates because there are these protochordates which are not vertebrates. Besides the basic chordate character, vertebrates have a ventral muscular heart. So from now on, you can start thinking of us because we have this ventral muscular heart with two, three, or four chambers. So humans have four chamber, but the earlier orders also have two chamber, three chamber heart. Kidney for excretion, osmoregulation, paired appendages. So we have paired appendages like two hand, two legs, maybe fins or limbs. Like in fishes, it will be fins. So here is the classification given the flow chart. So in vertebrates, we have this division Gnathostomata and Agnatha. So in vertebrates, we have the Agnatha which lack the jaw, which is example given here, class Cyclostomata. and Gnathostomata meaning Gnatha meaning the jaw, bear's jaw, and then it can be divided into Pisces superclass, which has two classes, Chondrites and Osteitis. And then there is the other superclass Tetrapoda, which has amphibia, reptilia, aves, and mammals. So these are the Gnathostomata. But in Agnatha, there is only one class that we are going to study, which is Cyclostomata. So before talking about vertebrates, let me just check if there are any questions from you guys. Okay, so let's move on. So the first one that we're going to study here is the class Cyclostomata, which comes under Agnatha. This division, Agnatha, and as the name suggests, it doesn't have a jaw, it lacks a jaw. So all the living organisms of this class are ectoparasites, so they are parasites on some fishes, not in their body, they just depend externally on them. They have elongated body bearing 6 to 15 pairs of gill slits for respiration. So this you should remember, that members of Cyclostomata have 6 to 15 pairs of gill slits. Cyclostomes have a sucking and circular mouth without jaw. Their body is devoid of scales, so there is no presence of scale-like structure on their body, but they have paired fins. They don't have paired fins also. So there is their body is devoid of scales and paired fins. Unlike the fishes, which have the fins also in pairs, different kind of fins, dorsal fin, pectoral fin, all these are present in fishes. But in cyclostomes, these things are absent, like petromyzon. Like petromyzon, you can see there is no scales. It's very like smooth structure of its body, and then also it doesn't have any fins. Cranium and vertebral column are cartilaginous, meaning they are made of cartilage. Circulation is of closed type, so they have this heart which is pumping through arteries and veins. Cyclostomes are marine but migrate for spawning to fresh water. So this is again important. So for spawning, for giving rise to the new organism, they go to the fresh water. After spawning, within a few days they die. Their larvae, after metamorphosis, return to the ocean to complete this life cycle. So cyclostomes are dependent on the fishes. These are some key things that you should remember. They have 6 to 15 pairs of gill slits. Their body doesn't have any scales, no fins. Then, like no paired fins. Of course, they have fins to support their locomotion, but no paired fins like fishes. Then they mostly live in marine water. For spawning, they go to fresh water. Their larvae, they stay there in the fresh water, and after they hatch, they come out and go back to the marine water. So this is how their life cycle works. Example is petromyzon, which is also known as lamprey, and myxine, which is hagfish. Now coming to the actual fishes, which is chondrites, which is cartilaginous fishes. So they are marine animals with streamlined body and have cartilaginous endoskeleton. So their internal skeleton is made of cartilage. So here you can see the sharks, Colydon and Pristis. Two examples of cartilaginous fishes given here are Scolydon and Pristis. Mouth is located ventrally, same for us. Notobod is persistent throughout the life, same for us. Gill slits are separate and without operculum, so there is no gill cover. So gill slits are present, they are separate, but there is no covering for these gill slits. It's exposed. Skin is tough, containing minute placoid scales. So this you should remember. For chondrites, they have placoid scale. For osteitis, they have cycloid scales. So this will come later. Teeth are modified placoid scales. So these placoid scales, so these scales were also absent in cyclostomata, but now in the true fishes they are present and they are backwardly directed. So these are like this. So if you have seen the fish Let me show you the image of shark, teeth, aquoid scales. These are backwardly directed, and the jaws are very powerful. So you might have heard sharks are very dangerous. Animals are predaceous, and so they depend on the predator. They attack and grab the prey. So they depend on prey, not the predator. So they are having this predator-like nature. Due to the absence of air bladder, they have to swim constantly to avoid sinking. So they can't just stay in the water like that. They have to constantly swim. If they stop, then they will come out of the water because they don't have any air bladder kind of thing to allow them, or they will just sink deep in the water. So one more thing, their heart is two-chambered, one auricle, one ventricle, one atrium, one ventricle. Some of them have electric organ. Example, torpedo. So torpedo, you might have heard, gives electric shock. Poison sting, trigon. Trigon, poison sting. Torpedo, electric shock. And they are cold-blooded, so they are present in the poikilothermus. They are also called as poikilothermus. They are present in water, so they are mostly cold-blooded depending on the temperature of water. Their temperature, internal temperature will also change. They lack the capacity to regulate the body temperature. Sexes are separate. Male pelvic fins bear clasper, and they have internal fertilization. Many of them are viviparous, so they give rise to the new one directly. So new offspring directly without the egg formation, which is seen in some of the fishes, which we'll talk later. Example here is Colloidon, which is the dogfish, or the sharkfish. This is the sawfish, looking like a saw. Carcharodon, which is the great white shark, and Trigon, which is the stingray. Also the torpedo, which is the electric organ containing. So here you can see the placoid scale. Perhaps here it's somewhat clear. So you can see it's directed backward, like towards the shark inside. So this is how the placoid scales look in the shark. See, I think it's clear, somewhat clear here. See, this is directed inwards or backwards, you can see. That was about chondrites. Coming to the next group, which is osteitis, which are the fishes which have a bony skeleton, endoskeleton. They can be marine and freshwater with bony endoskeleton. Their body is again streamlined, mouth is mostly terminal at the end, and they have four pairs of gills which are covered by an operculum. So again, a point of differentiation from the chondrites. The chondrites don't have an operculum. Here, the osteitis have an operculum to cover the gill slits. Covered by cycloid or tinoid scales. So the skin here is covered by cycloid or tinoid scales. There it was placoid scale. Air bladder is present, which help regulate buoyancy. In the osteitis, there is no air bladder present, meaning they have to always swim to keep floating to avoid sinking in the water. Heart is again two-chambered, one auricle, one ventricle. So this is same as osteitis. We can just compare and study to easily remember the things. They are cold-blooded, same poikilotherms, sexes are separate, same fertilization is external, same. Mostly oviparous and development is direct. So this is again a difference. There they are viviparous. Here they give rise to eggs, and from the eggs hatch the new offspring. Here the example are marine are exocetus, which is the flying fish you might have seen in the videos. And then hippocampus. Hippocampus is a region in our brain also, but it is the genus name of seahorse. Freshwater is labio, cutla, clarias, and in aquarium you see betta and pterophyllum, all these fishes. So you can just remember it's not something very difficult. Some of them you might have also heard in your home also. Next class is amphibia. So here name indicates amphi meaning dual, bia meaning bios, life. can live in aquatic as well as terrestrial habitats. So amphibians of the plant kingdom, I told you, bryophytes. There I discussed that they mostly live on the terrestrial surface, but their life cycle is dependent on water so much so that they are called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom. Most of them have two pairs of limbs, like they are basically coming under tetrapods, so they have four limbs in total, which is two pairs. Body is divisible into head and trunk. Tail may be present in some because in the tadpole stage they had tail, but in the frog this tail is lost. But in salamander this tail remains. Amphibian skin is moist, so it is moist. It doesn't have any scaly-like structure. Then the eyes have eyelids, so they can close their eyelid. Unlike fishes, which don't have eyelids, so their eyes are always open. Tympanum is a structure which represents the ear, alimentary canal, urinary canal. All these have a common chamber called cloaca. This is again important. So if you study the structure of a frog later on in the later chapters, you'll come across this structure because it is a very important chamber where all these three come together: the reproductive tract, urinary tract, as well as the alimentary canal, which opens to the exterior. Respiration is by the gills, lungs, through the skin. So there are multiple ways to respire for an amphibian, and the heart is three-chambered. So from two-chambered fishes, you have three-chambered amphibians. Here, two auricles, one ventricle. So two auricles, and then they come together in the single ventricle. So there is mixing of this oxygenated and deoxygenated blood that was coming from the lungs and different parts of the body. These are again cold-blooded. That's why they can't regulate their temperature. Sexes are separate. Fertilization is external, oviparous. So they also give rise to eggs, and from the eggs hatches the new young one. Development is indirect through the larval. So you might have heard tadpole, which is the larval stage of frogs. Bufo, which is toad, Rana tigrina, which is the frog, Hyla is the tree frog, Salamandra is the salamander, Ichthyophis is the limbless amphibia without any limb. It appears like that. So, yeah, Ichthyophis, you should remember, is an example of limbless amphibia. Let me also try to show it if it is loading properly. Ichthyo- Ichthyophis. Here it looks like snake, but it is actually an amphibian. So, based on all the different characteristics that we talked about, it belongs to the amphibians. Although you will see it from far away and you will think that this is maybe a member of snakes, but its skin and all the other features align more with amphibians. So, this example you should remember, not to confuse with snakes or any other group. Ichthyophis, limbless amphibia. So here are example of reptiles. So this is chameleon. Then there is crocodile. There is elon, which is this, and there is naja, which is snake. So let's talk about reptiles briefly. Reptiles, as the name suggests, which comes from repere or reptum, which means to crawl or creep. Creeping or crawling mode of locomotion. They are mostly like turtles are also crawling. Snake is also crawling, and this although crocodile doesn't crawl that much, but it walks very slowly, so that is why the group is called reptilia. Mostly terrestrial animals, their body is covered by dry and cornified skin. So their skin is very dry and very solid, cornified, dead skin cells. Epidermal scales or scutes. So these scales are called scutes. They do not have external ear openings, so they can just sense vibration. They don't have this tympanum-like structure, which was seen in the amphibians. Tympanum represents here, so tympanum is present, but their external auricle is not present. Limbs, when present, are two pairs. So in snake there is no limb, but in crocodile there are limbs, so they are in two pairs. Tetrapoda. Heart is usually three-chambered, but in crocodile it is four-chambered. So this is important. Crocodile has four chambers, so you can say it can also belong to mammals then. but it doesn't have mammary glands or hair-like structures, so that is why it is put under the reptilia class. Reptiles are poikilotherm, again cold-blooded, because again there is this mixing of blood happening which doesn't let them to regulate their internal body temperature. Snakes and lizards shed their scales as skin casts. Sexes are separate. Fertilization internal. Again, give rise to eggs. So oviparous, and development is direct without any intermediate stage. Directly, the zygote will get converted to the adult form. Chilon is turtle. Testudo is tortoise. Chameleon is tree lizard. Calotes is the garden lizard. Crocodilus is crocodile. Alligator is alligator. Hemidactylus wall lizard. So all the different kinds of lizards that you can think of. Poisonous snake, there are three: Naja, which is cobra; Bengalurus, which is crate; and Vipera, which is viper. So again, this is quite easy to remember the names. Then comes the next class, which is aves. The characteristic feature of aves are the presence of feathers. They can fly, most of them, and most of them can fly except the flightless birds like ostrich. So ostrich is an example which cannot fly. They possess beak, and the forelimbs are modified into wings. So their forewings are converted into wings, but their hind limb still stays like a walking locomotory organ. The hind limbs generally have scales and are modified for walking, swimming, clasping tree branches. Skin is dry without glands except the oil gland at the base of the tail. So this is important. So their skin is mostly dry except there is the oil gland which is present as at the base of the tail for some lubrication or some kind of additional function, but their skin is mostly dry. Then the endoskeleton is fully ossified and the long bones are hollow with air cavities which are called pneumatic bones. Pneumatic bones meaning hollow pneumatic bones. So you can easily understand why this is required for flying hollow bones, so that their weight is not too much but can still support the weight of the organism's body. Digestive tract of bird has additional chamber called crop and gizzard, so this we can study later. And you can also understand that there are these structures which help in processing of the food, unlike in the more developed organism where the enzymes can do much of the breaking and digestion stuff. Heart is completely four chambered. So from now on, they have four chambered heart. So they have two atrium, two ventricles. So now there will be pure circulation of blood, which will help in maintaining the internal temperature, and that is why they are warm blooded or homeothermous. Unlike the poikilotherms, they are homeotherms. They are able to maintain a constant body temperature. Respiration is by lungs, so they have lungs, air sac connected to lungs, supplement respiration. Sexes are separate, fertilization is internal. Again, birds also give eggs, that most of you must be knowing. Development is direct. Corvus is crow, C say corvus, C for crow. Columba is pigeon, Columbus. Sittacula is parrot, Sittacula. Strutio is ostrich, Pavo is peacock, Eptenodytes is penguin, and Neophron is vulture. So all these names you should remember. I mean, there are not that much name also. If you study it in depth, there will be thousands of names, but at least the examples that are given in NCERT must be revised and understood properly. So Neophron, you can see vulture, Strutio is ostrich, Sitacula is the parrot, and Pavo is peacock. So like that, you can make some flashcards to remember all this thing, and you can easily remember them for long term. Then coming to the final group here, Mammalia, they are found in variety of habitats like polar ice cap, desert, mountain, all these things. So it's very easy to understand because they are one of the most developed organisms, and they have the ability to control their internal body temperature, so they can survive in harsh environment as well as in some of the most challenging habitats as listed here, like deserts, polar ice caps, and other regions. Some of them have adapted to fly or live in water, like you can see the bat, which is a mammal. It is not a bird, it is a mammal, and it has adapted to fly. The most unique mammalian characteristic which is present in all the mammals is the presence of milk producing mammary gland by which the young ones are nourished. So this is like a defining character for the mammals, which is present in all the mammals, mammary glands. They have two pairs of gills, of limbs, adapted for walking, running, burrowing, all the different activities. The skin of mammal is unique in possessing hairs. So they also have hair. This is again important quality, although it's not a defining quality, but it is a unique quality. External ears or pinna. So you can now think of yourself as a human, what all characters you have as a mammal also. So the external pinna, different type of teeth are present in the jaw. Heart is four-chambered. We have four-chambered homeothermos. We can regulate our internal temperature. Respiration is by lungs. So we have lungs. Sexes are separate. Fertilization is internal. Viviparous. So no need of giving rise to an egg. Directly we can generate the newborn organism with few exceptions, and development is direct. For example, here is oviparous. So ornitho ornithorhynchus, which is the platypus. You should know this example very much clearly. Platypus. Then this is oviparous. So this is the exception here. So that is why you should know. Among mammals, this group give rise to eggs first, and from the eggs, the new one comes out. Then viviparous is the macropus, which is kangaroo. Pteropus is the flying fox, which is the bat. Camellius is the camel, macaca is monkey, ratus is rat, canis is dog, felis is cat, elephas is elephant. Some of these are very easy to remember. Equus is horse, Delphinus is dolphin, Balenoptera is blue whale, Panthera tigris is tiger, Panthera leo is lion, Panthera pardus is leopard or leopard. Like that you can remember, it's very easy. So all this complete chapter on animal kingdom will just go through this summary, which has all the important qualities or characteristic that is studied for the animal kingdom, and it is very important to revise this. So once you have studied, we have gone through all the text, then it's important to revise it. So I'll just go through it briefly for you to understand or revise it. Porifera, cellular level of organization, symmetry can be various, although it's lack of symmetry. Here they have written various. Coelom is absent, segmentation absent, digestive system absent, circulatory system absent, respiratory, all the systems absent. Only there is this canals of water which help in the bringing in of the nutrient respiratory products like oxygen and other things that are required for its survival. Next is Coelenterata nidaria. It has tissue level organization, radial symmetry. All the things are absent or incomplete. Nidoblast are present. Ctenophora, again tissue level, radial symmetry. Again similar to the previous group. Most of the things are absent or incomplete digestion, and comb plates are present. And also it has bioluminescence. Remember that. Next is Platyhelminthes. I should use the pen, I guess, because the marker is highlighting everything. Platyhelminthes have organ level. They have also written organ system for some platyhelminthes, but it's mostly organ. Now after this, everyone is bilateral symmetry except for Echinodermata. They don't have coelom. Everything is absent, flat body and sucker. Remember the examples also here. Escalmenthes start with organ system, pseudocoelomate, but there is some organ system present, others are still absent. Annelida, now it is quite developed. So it has organ system, it is coelomate, it has all the systems also present and complete. And it also has segmentation called metamerism. Metamerism is the phenomenon, and the metamers are the segments. Next is arthropoda, organ system, bilateral, all the things are developed, present. Just remember exoskeleton and jointed appendages, cuticle of chitin. Mollusca, organ system, everything is present, complete. External skeleton of shell usually present. So one thing is absent here, which is the segmentation is absent. Yeah. So segmentation is only seen in few groups, like in Annelida and Arthropoda, segmentation is seen. In chordata also segmentation is seen, but in the other groups segmentation is absent. Only in these three groups segmentation is seen. Remember this. Then echinodermata, all the things are developed, and they are coelomate also. Hemichordata, all the things are developed, coelomate. So here the echinodermata water vascular system, radial symmetry, and the hemichordata have worm-like proboscis, collar, and trunk. Proboscis is for excretion. Chordates have everything developed: notochord, which is dorsal hollow nerve cord, single nerve cord, and gill slits with limbs or fins. So that is all that we have to study for the animal kingdom. I've also revised everything for you. So let's go through the summary quickly. Basic fundamental features, all this we have described to classify the animal kingdom. Fundamental features, there are many other distinctive features specific for each phylum class, which we saw in the table and also throughout the text. Porifera includes multicellular organism, exhibits cellular level of organization. Same things are being repeated where they are flagellated choanocytes. Traits have tentacles and cnidoblast. Remember these cells also, choanocytes in poriferans. In coelentrates, there are cnidoblast or cnidocytes, which have this stinging organ. Aquatic, free floating. So there is this alteration of generation called metagenesis, which is seen in coelentrates. Ctenophores are marine with eight comb plates, external comb plates, which help in locomotion. This you should remember. Platyhelminths have flat body, bilateral symmetry. Parasitic form have sucker and hook. Escalmenthes are pseudocoelomate, parasitic as well as non-parasitic. And you should also remember that the female is longer here. Example was Ascaris. Annelids have metameric segmentation, true coelom. Arthropods are the most abundant group. Presence of jointed appendages. Their name itself says arthro meaning joints and pods mean appendages. So jointed appendages are present. Mollusks have a soft body surrounded by calcareous shell, covered by external skeleton made of chitin. Echinoderm have spiny skin. Distinctive feature is the presence of water vascular system. All these things you should remember for each phylum. What are the key characteristics? Hemichordates, worm-like marine animals, cylindrical body, proboscis, collar, and trunk. Collar also has the structure called stomochord. That is why they were put under chordates earlier. Then chordates include animal notochord throughout their life or during embryonic life, early embryonic life. Feature include chordates like dorsal, hollow nerve cord, and paired pharyngeal gill slits. Vertebrates that do not possess jaw, agnatha, whereas most of them possess jaw. Agnatha is represented by the class Cyclostomata. Then they are the most primitive chordates, ectoparasite on fishes. Gnathostomata has two classes, Spices and Tetrapoda. Classes, superclasses. And classes Chondrites, Osteichthyes, fins for locomotion are under Pisces. Chondrites, cartilaginous endoskeleton. Then amphibia, reptilia, aves, and mammals, two pair of limb grouped under tetrapoda. Just remember an exception for the limbless amphibia, which was ichthyophis. Amphibians are adapted to both land and water. Reptiles have presence of cornified skin. Limbs are absent in snake. This so all of us know. Limbs are absent in snake. Fish, amphibian, reptiles all are poikilotherm. Aves are warm-blooded because they have four-chambered heart, two auricle, two ventricles. So that is why they are able to maintain internal. They are able to maintain their internal temperature. Feathers on their body, forelimbs modified into wings, and at the base of their body there is this oil gland. Hind limbs are adapted for walking, swimming, etc. Unique feature of mammal is presence of mammary gland and hair on the skin. They exhibit viviparity, directly giving rise to their new one or the offspring. So that was it from the animal kingdom. I hope I was able to explain it well to all of you, and also you will be able to revise it quickly now that I've explained it so nicely to all of you. With the table itself, you will be able to understand most of the concepts. And if you list the example of all the different organisms, you will be able to revise everything within 20 to 30 minutes from the top to the bottom. So that is how you study quickly and also revise it. Let me see if there are some questions. Otherwise, I will close this session here. It's over 2 hour 30 minutes. I tried to complete it as soon as possible, but because this is a big chapter, I didn't want to compromise on the quality, so that's why I took the time. I didn't even take a break in between for like water or anything. But I hope it is useful for all of you. So yeah, if you like my effort and you also want to study more in future, you can subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends and like this video definitely so that more people will know about this effort from my side. They can also study well. So this was all about the animal kingdom. Thank you for whoever joined, and let's meet in the next session. I will try to do this GATE Excel paper solving session tomorrow. Okay. See you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.